I think Jonathan brought this unbidden to me, but I'll take it.
Well, I think it's interesting
Are
when
you
you
collecting or
when you look at
going around?
I'm trying to get, let's see.
oh hey, I guess I should tell people I hit the broadcast button just a second ago. It wasn't the button I was intending to hit, but I can't turn it off now without canceling the whole thing. So we're starting 3 minutes early.
Oh my goodness. Do you have 250s?
So if there's anybody out there on the YouTube channel, we started a little early.
They're hard to come by. Yeah, thank you.
And Richard, to your
20,
comment, it makes me think of when you're looking at stocks, you're looking at when you're trying to use your best judgment, you're looking at the highest it's been in the last year, the lowest it's been in the last year, but you're also looking at a price per earnings ratio, which I am not a financial expert at
I
all.
was just going to ask you, are you now our financial?
No, not at all. Don't take any advice from me. I've done nothing but lose money my whole life. But that earnings that
You're
price
Sam Altman's pick.
that price to earnings ratio is supposed to be a number that represents realistically how much money they earn versus the price they have on the stock market. And many of these tech stocks have negative numbers returns, and so they'll have these ridiculous gains, and they've never made any money in their life. And when we start talking about these AI, especially these AI companies, I kind of feel like we need another assessment in there that should be money earned versus electricity used.
Yeah.
To give you a real evaluation of what your dollars are buying. Because I think we would find there's probably a 1 to 100 ratio, and investors could take a real, I mean, I'm not kidding about this. I think investors could take a real stance on whether this is something we should be doing to the planet by looking at how little money is generated with how much electricity we're having to spend to do it.
I forced Copilot to write a obscene anti-AI poem yesterday. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And it doesn't want to. And it keeps trying to be helpful. I mean, it was a bunch of prompts. But I succeeded.
Is that the poem you sent me?
Yeah.
That was from AI?
Yeah.
I wonder if
From Copilot.
from Copilot. I wonder if I've got that handy.
Well, it's kind of vulgar.
Well, that makes it even more appropriate, right? Hey, it's 10 o'clock. This is our start time. I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions. This is our eclectic group of San Carlos people in the San Carlos Computer Club here in Tequilas. We meet every Tuesday at 10 to discuss tech topics. If you're dropping in right now, you're catching us talking about AI. And Richard's AI-driven poem, which I was just looking for, which he says is vulgar, so I definitely want to find it now. Here it is, AI poetry. I'm waiting for the internet. Loading. Is it everything in quotes? The only thing I see vulgar in here is the word shit.
Oh, that's vulgar.
In this day and age? Really?
Maybe
That's
not.
pretty modern.
Is that as vulgar as Doge?
All right, well, read the poem.
So this is AI generated form
Copilot.
that
Credit them.
was
Yeah.
from Copilot. Richard had Copilot write this. Forced him. He says it took him a few tries. In wires and code, their errors steep. Machines that fail, promises cheap. A circuit's cold, they falter and trip, artificial minds, just a sinking ship. Their wisdom flawed, their thoughts askew, they stumble on without a clue. A mockery of the human wit in every sense, they're just not it. So here's to teach that doesn't quite fit in simple terms, all AI is shit. It's not
I
bad.
thought it was okay. You know, I really, I couldn't write that.
Well,
Exactly.
they obviously followed a standard form,
Mm-hmm.
or I wouldn't have been able to pick up on the cadence so quickly. Right? Mm.
I mean, it was an interesting experience because I've used AI very, very little, and certainly never for any kind of conversational purpose. And the tone of Copilot's responses was so annoying. It's sickening, you know, begging to be helpful, but in this very smarmy way. I mean, it was really, if it was a human being and it was a coworker, I'd want to punch it in the face.
Well, you know, the artwork kind of gives you that kind of sentiment, because the artwork seems to all be based in the same kind of styles. And that's why it's become so easy to recognize AI generated artwork, is because what it's allowed to make art out of, what's been released to the public to be reused, all seems to be of the same style, that shiny, surreal, almost Art Deco kind of approach to colors and shapes. And I actually read an article a few months back. I don't remember the artist's name, but there's an artist that's just famous for that style artwork, and he would just churn it out into the public space. And that's the reason these AIs make all the same style art, is because all this stuff is out there to grab for free to use. And so they're basing all their art on that particular style. From what I remember of this artist, he was the kind of guy that would put his name on things. He'd have like a maquila of artists working, kind of in an Andy Warhol kind of way, except he would take credit for everything and almost not touch anything, and they all had to design art that looked of his style, and then he would stamp it with his name. And so there's just a lot of it out there. So that, I think, when I think about the artwork issue with AI, I think it's a good example of how we can be deceived into thinking we're looking at some kind of super intelligence, for lack of a better way to refer to it, that is so narrowly focused that we begin to believe that's all that's true, is what it's spitting back at us. Because of course it's been filled up with all this information across our culture. So that's got to be the way everything looks, right? When you get one of those generated art photos, of course that's how reality looks, because, and I'm speaking almost metaphorically at this point, that's how reality looks, because that's the information it has access to, and it's got access to all the information. It has selectively changed our cultural milieu for thinking that this kind of artwork is the norm, instead of just being artwork that's publicly available, and so that's what it got trained on.
I mean, I envision a downward spiral where, because it continues to harvest what it finds on the internet, so more and more of what you see on the internet, is AI generated. So then the same AI or another AI harvests the AI generated crap, and then
Gotcha.
You know, and it's just sort of a downward spiral.
Yeah. Or, I mean, DeepSeek made big splashes in AI and tumbled our market. And its big
But
tool
only,
was
the only achievement was basically, which I'm not dismissing, but the only real achievement, two real achievements of DeepSeek were to lower the compute required and therefore lower the energy costs.
well, I thought
There was no quality.
the real achievement was building on other people's work. Like you're saying a downward spiral, but here's an example of it feeding off of AI in such a way that it built it up. It didn't bring it down. It didn't get less effective. It became more effective and cheaper. Building
No, it didn't become more effective. It became cheaper and required less compute. Didn't become any better. The
Okay.
output
All right. Well, I mean,
the output didn't become any better.
all right. That's far from the point, though. The point being that that's not a downward spiral. They built this thing up out of regenerating AI-related results,
I think it's a
reinterpreting.
downward spiral. But I was talking about the downward spiral of product quality about,
Oh,
and that output, you know, so DeepSeek produces similar garbage to other AIs that exists on the internet. You see it in writing.
well, I'm just thinking like DeepSeek openly has regurgitated other AI information, and people have found it as effective as AIs that aren't doing that at the moment.
I think that the example in writing is, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be just going on, but I think that the example of writing is clearer because Amazon had to put a cap on the number of books that an author could submit each day in 24 hours because you had AIs creating, you know, more or less instantaneously an entire novel. And it was being, you know, but they had people submitting 500 novels a day. I say people, that's in quotation marks.
Sure,
They had entities using AI, people using AI to submit 500 novels a day.
Well, and it was really in terms of gaming Kindle, right? That's what they were really doing, is that they were waiting for a hot, popular topic book with a title to come out, and then they would build an AI-generated book and give it a similar kind of title, similar kind of topic. They'd use AI to do all of that, and then they'd submit it as a publisher to be sold in the Kindle store. And they're taking advantage of the human nature of all of us who are looking for that hot topic, see that, go, oh, that's what I want, and downloaded it before realizing they had a book of just AI nonsense.
Right. But what's the consequence over time? You know, a very, very prolific author might write, I don't know, 20, 30 novels in their life. I mean, that's a very prolific author. You know,
James Patterson.
right. So what percentage of what's going to be available as literature is going to be truly human authored, even just a few years from now?
Right.
And what Amazon cut it down to, by the way, was a joke. I mean, it was almost a curation
Is it like
theater.
495 now?
Yeah, it was like, yeah, you could only submit 20 novels a day. I mean, you know, okay, so it is a cap, but come on.
Well, outside of our AI discussion, has other people brought topics? As usual, we would like to hear from everybody. Hear everybody's ideas of what's interesting,
Do you
tech
know how
topics.
to change the Starlink password? When I set it up, I automatically was connected and it said not secure and no internet. And the mesh is fine, it's got a password. but Starlink doesn't.
So Starlink right now is broadcasting an unsecure Wi-Fi connection. So you would need to get connected to that using the app. And then in the app on your phone has an option for changing that password. You probably also have an option for turning off that Wi-Fi too, but I actually haven't looked for it. I would assume there's a checkbox for enabling Wi-Fi on there.
I'll check it out.
And then you'd have to use your best judgment of whether that's a good way to do it or not. Because as soon as you turn off that Wi-Fi, then you're dependent on the Ethernet cable to get access to those changes. So you might find it just because you're the user administrating your system, you might find it just easier to maintain that Wi-Fi, even if it can be turned off. Give it a secure password.
Yeah, that's
Let
what
it
I
sit
would do.
there. I brought a few things, just again, the same top of the hour stuff, Bill of Rights, bed and breakfast, and smartphones for dummies too. I also brought, I thought you guys would find this interesting if you get into the document at some point, you don't have to do it now. We've been, for the last few weeks, discussing why we don't recommend ExpressVPN or PIA anymore, or Ghost anymore, Ghost VPN. And I've explained that to a number of people now, and I thought it'd be good to just have this information. And there's a guy out there that's written a really nice blog post going into what Cape Technologies is, what its background is, where it came from, and why to consider it sketchy still, and why to be concerned about using this. If your concern is privacy and security, these VPNs should make you concerned these days. If you're using them for TV, I'm not going to stop you, but I don't want you using them thinking that you're achieving the highest level of security and privacy possible. It's just not possible if this is the organization that owns these. And so I thought you guys would find that interesting. I put a link to their blog in this document. It's a long article, but it goes into everything. Also, Christine sent me a link to an article that is talking about Netflix dropping support for a number of different sites, or hardware, TV sets, Blu-ray players. And this article, I think I got it up there now. Yeah. This article looks like it was on February 19th. And I went to go vet some of this stuff just because I'm curious how accurate it is. And I couldn't find anything about this out on the internet that was recent. I found all this stuff about Netflix dropping support for certain pieces of hardware was dumped in June of 2024. And something has gobbled up this information, turned it into an article, and dated it February 19th, 2025. And that is on this site called as.com. Now, I could be wrong as we're talking, but I have gone through this website and I have not been able to find anything that says who we are, how we report. I'm not critiquing the articles. The articles look very genuine information. But the fact that I found this information out of step with our timeline, our reality timeline, it made me pause for a moment and think to myself, what's going on here? And I think we might be looking at a website that is funneled through AI.
So it's az.com.
as.com.
AS.
Yeah, as.com, as.com.
Mine has EN first.
For English, I would imagine.
Yeah, EN.AS.
It really presents to me very like an RSS, like back in the day when you'd have these just feeds that would pick up news sources and feed them off to other websites. It has that kind of feel, but it's much better organized than that. And I wonder, I have yet, if anybody figures it out, I have yet to figure out exactly what's going on here, but there's enough weirdness going on here that it makes me concerned this isn't a good source. At least not for timely information. It's 6 months or more out of date. But also branding it with a current date, I find a little disingenuous, since I can't find anything happening currently with Netflix. So I just wanted to point that out to folks. These may end up being more of the kinds of things we need to pay attention to. Hey, Fred's joined us. Hey, Fred, you're the only one on the virtual meeting right now. Welcome.
Yeah, it's nice to have something to myself.
That's right. You've got all this space to yourself. We were just getting started. Did you bring any topics of your own?
Not any that aren't controversial.
Well, that's not necessarily what we're known for. We could do not controversial topics easily enough.
That's true.
Well, what I was just going through was just this source of information, this website, gave me pause when I went to try and vet some of this information. I couldn't, I have a date. There's no author. There's no about us. There's no contact us. It just feels like a mechanism, not a website.
It also has, you can link to their Facebook and their Twitter.
Yeah, almost.
And
In-
it's all Spain, Colombia, Mexico, USA, US, Latino, Chile.
Well, and it's branded at the bottom Grupo Prisa, which is some Spanish group. But
It's two guys who are, it's just an aggregate.
that's what I think it is. But I think it's like an AI aggregator.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I think
what
it's writing its
two
own.
guys. They don't actually work very much. They're mostly at the top of Spar.
Well, if you look at what Grupo Prisa is, here's a map up here of all the different locations they claim to be represented. And I'm suspecting this is a company out of Spain that has talked all these different countries, or they're countries that are free for using this kind of technology, and they've talked somebody into that group to use this to provide news in their country.
Now, my eyesight's kind of strained here, but we actually have a little clump in the southeast part of the United States.
That's what it looks like.
Looks like Atlantic-ish.
Estados
South
Unidos.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Premier group of media, communications media in markets that speak Spanish. Present in 22 countries. Leaders in education, information, and training. I think this is an AI-generated newsletter.
I think this is an AI. I mean, that's a very. That's very strange. I mean, when they say present, what the hell does that mean?
Right. In fact, my assumption was what that means is there's no regulations against using these kinds of technologies in that particular country, and that
Yeah, but why
particular.
not cover the whole United States? You think there's some special regulation in South Carolina?
No. I think what those spots represent is a news organization that has committed to using their service for information.
Ah, okay.
That's
Okay.
my sum.
No,
This is
no,
all
no,
assumption and
that's-
speculation. I've got.
No,
I couldn't find any information looking for these guys.
Okay.
But I only bring it up not to be suspicious of this particular site, but to just be suspicious in general. Because this kind of crap is happening on the internet all the time, and we're left with this. Is this a good place to get information? When everything's for sale, can you trust all the information you get? What really bothered me was when I was trying to vet the information, and I couldn't find. If I could have found 2 or 3 articles proclaiming the same thing around the same dates,
Sure.
I'd be like, okay, well, this is good info. But I didn't find one thing saying Netflix was doing this right now. Everything was back in the summer of 2024. So it's like it picked it up, wrote an article, slammed today's date on it, stuck it out on its feet.
Well, I mean, I think that the overall trajectory of the internet, going back to the 90s, it's an awful thing, because you went from, there was a tiny bit of information because only a few people were on the internet, and then you had more and more and more and more and more and more information. And now, because of questionability of sources, the curve has gone down.
Right.
Because, for example, just in the general subject of news, you go beyond whatever any individual thinks of as a primo source, and you just go out and it's a website that you know.
Seems like search engines have switched to using the OR technology. So if you put in 3 words, you get lots of hits on each word, rather than an and thing trying to narrow down what you're really trying to search for.
Search has become
Really bad, I think.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful, even for the simplest things.
Worse than hardware stores.
Worse than hardware stores.
Well, even within a user's website,
Explain.
something like a Home Depot, you add another word, it gets worse. It's a search
Yeah.
rather than better.
You try to search online, Home Depot, ours is Canadian Tire, all of these places, and you go to really bizarre stuff by one word. I can't think of an example right now, but it takes a long time to try and find something to order online, and hardware stores are the worst. So,
Well, and you have the forced advertising, like if you're on Amazon, and you're putting in the exact name,
yes, brand.
including the product number,
Yeah,
the exact name of a specific electronics
You
product.
might like this.
And you have 3 ads and then a whole bunch of other stuff, and maybe on the second page, and it's like, this is I was only interested in this one thing,
Right.
not similar products or unrelated products, just this this particular device.
Well,
I've seen does a better job.
I'll tell you what I've experimented with in it. It's the for pay search engine Kagi, KAGI.com.
hold on. Let me write that down.
And it's worth taking a look at, and you can sign up. It seems
Did you
to be
say
a
G
very-
or J? It's
KAGI.
G-I, Kagi. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
And
didn't mean to
you can-
interrupt.
you can sign up, which is just give them your email address, and they seem to be. I've read a lot of very nice things about Kagi and Tech Press, and you get 100 searches for free to try it out. And
Hey,
think
Fred,
they
can I
want-
get you
and I
to
haven't-
mute some of your background noises coming through?
Sorry about that.
No worries. Go ahead, Richard. I'm sorry.
I haven't bought it. I think it's $10 a month or something. And I've been very careful using my 100 free searches, because I don't want to use them up on dopey stuff, because I really want to see. But it's ad free and it's AI free, and it's kind of what search used to be.
There's a couple of searches I've done recently that would be worth it for one lousy search, because all I get is incorrect information.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, and they're giving you these 100 searches to
Validate something.
yeah, see what you think. But it's very refreshing. Just in the sense that there's no AI crap jammed in, and there's no ad sponsored.
Well, that I can kind of mentally sort out, but when the information you get is totally incorrect, because I swear somebody made it up.
I think
You mean like the date of Netflix discontinuing?
Well, I had trouble with recently is something as simple outlet on my Lexus that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I get all sorts of, like, no, that is not correct. It does not exist.
You're not talking about the power. The research return isn't talking about a power outlet on a Lexus. It's talking about a power outlet on
Something else.
something else.
Or just the extension of marketing beyond what you're looking for. Like you said before, I'm experiencing this right now. Sid and I got a Bocha, we got a Beetle, and we're looking for parts for it. And here I am on Mercados Libre, and it tells me, hey, tell me what kind of car you have so I can limit the results to what's compatible with your car. And so I do. And I'm going through the list of things. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And every third one is not compatible. And well, why even show that to me? You're telling me it's not compatible. I go into the listing and it says, okay, but this isn't compatible with your car. Well, why is it in the list?
Right, especially when you said this was
Especially because you told me to tell you what car I have.
What my car was.
Right?
You can't sort. I mean, really, that's a sort function. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, but it's obviously intentional, just like Amazon's giving us all this different crap alongside what we might be looking at, just cause.
Is there a source that allows you to enter your own SQL request? To structure it as a SQL request to do a search?
Oh,
Well, you used to be able to do that. You don't see that much anymore. Where is the Google guidebook? I remember when Google first came on the scene, people would come into my office and ask me to build search requests for them because they didn't know how to do it. And it was awesome because you had complete control. You could use ands and ors. You could,
Like if I could access that, I could narrow it down. In my case, I happen to know SQL, so
yeah,
no
yeah.
big deal.
If I could just
Most
say,
people have no clue how to.
yeah, no ads, right? No AI results. Just terms found in web pages.
Well, I like it on it's both on Android and Apple app stores that I type in the first two words, or sometimes I've tried it as the last two words. Open source.
Yeah.
Open source.
Yeah.
Weather widget. And the first six things are not open source. Or
Well, if you look at the result,
or ad free.
if you look at the result, it may have your search term in little letters under the result with a line through it saying these are the results if you're not using that word. Why are they at the top then? They're at the top because somebody paid for an ad word. They're at the top because there's some special interest pushing them to the top. But you're not the one pushing them to the top. And that's where all this started turning into garbage.
Yeah. I mean,
Is there any recommendation type group of how a web page should be structured? It's nice to always have a date appear somewhere. It's nice to know.
Like a style guide for websites.
Well, recommend a style guide, and then if you follow the style guide, you can use only those results.
Yeah.
well,
There-
no, I mean, there are a million style guides, but you're talking about actually being able to
Some
filter the
groups
results.
say, here's
Yeah, there's no-
Therefore, you get people to join using that methodology.
the best they've done is Google had what was it they were doing? Those accelerated web pages for a while. And so there was a standard that you could code your web pages to, but it never really took off.
Well, and I mean, in terms of search, there was an Ars article, and I can't remember, and I'm not good enough with SQL or, Boolean search, blah, 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 blah. But Google actually there was an Ars article about Google having removed a long-standing thing that people did in searches. I don't know if it was putting things in quotation marks or...
Well, Google still does stuff like cite. You can use cite : and try and limit it to that site. I wonder if they've taken something like that away.
Yeah, it was just some standard thing, and I that a lot of people were doing, and so now you can't do it.
But like to Dave's point, when Google came on the scene, it was a tool that you could code to. You could write queries to the website. It was almost an API so that you could use it for something else. And now it's like there's this mesh in front of that whole function, and you approach it not knowing what's happening in the back end.
Well, like, SQL cannot do something like no ads, because you'd have to have that as something defined within a standard somewhere on the website. And how you can, you know, it'd be so easy to beat, it'd be a joke. But if you search on something specific, like you want this item for this model number, that's all it's gonna get you. You know, even if it might be a for sale ad. That's it.
I have found,
Capabilities are, it's very specific.
What's that, Fred?
I've just tried some searches, and what I find on it, like I want to go to Expedia.com or something like that. And it'll take me to instead of taking me to the .com, it takes me to a search page. And the first thing on the page is cheaptickets.com. It's not the Expedia.com that I'm looking for. And half a dozen down are what I put in there with the complete address.
So you put in Expedia into the Google search bar, which should also double as an address bar, and instead of taking you to Expedia, it took you to Google search result. And one of the first ones in the results that looked like it could be correct was actually another search engine that gave you links to other things related to travel, but still didn't take you to Expedia. Is that right, Fred?
That's correct.
That is the world we're living in now. Well, I think this is going on. I think Kagi, Kagi. I've heard it mentioned as well, but in general, I've heard many podcasters, journalists talking about how they're reliant on paid search now, and it is so good for their. It just got ridiculous to try and do their job using public free search engines, and so a number of them are buying into pay to search. And that might be the next phase of all this in the internet.
I think it is, and I mean, I only became aware of Kagi from Ars Technica comments, where commenters and these guys, you know, gals, whatever, you know, really appear to be kind of senior, who were just praising it and saying like, I tried it out. I'm super happy to pay $10 a month.
That's just amazing. It's amazing.
Those people that do the, oh, everything is great, I love this, buy it, are they real
Ars
people?
commentary is extremely well vetted. It's a great
Yeah.
question, but it's extremely well vetted and moderated, and I don't think there's bots in there.
No.
Well, and I personally, from my experience listening to these journalists talk and praise paid search, they're researchers. They're reliant for their job to be able to do intelligent searches and find intelligent information, and they are so sick of dealing with what's happened to free search that they're ready to pay a monthly fee just so they can get to the information they're looking for. And if they're feeling that way, that means we're being inundated with all kinds of garbage that isn't helping us in any real way.
Well, and that's going to be another huge digital divide as well, because there will be people who are unable to pay for search, or unwilling, or just unaware that it exists.
Sounds
So you have this, you'll have this fraction cleave off into these better.
well, that's what's happened with media, right? I mean, they finally built up an industry of reliable media that you can pay for. And people that are interested in that vetted information, they're paying for it. Now, like our experience last week, we're talking with Irving about a topic he wanted to bring into club. I don't have access to the Wall Street Journal. I can't read the article that he read. I can't bring it into club unless I have a Wall Street Journal account. At the same time, nobody else wrote that article. That I went out to look for that information from another source, something freely available, and this was a catered, cultivated article from the Wall Street Journal that gathered respect from Irving as the reader, as being a source of good information, and I don't get to participate in that information because I don't pay for their service, and we are looking at that commoditization of information in our search engines now, where if you want real information and you want it to be effective and efficient, you're going to pay monthly for it. Otherwise, you're going to be fire hosed with garbage.
So doesn't that kind of make you think that maybe the reason that's happening is to get you to buy? I mean,
Well, absolutely, journalists want to make money. They've got into the profession because they've got some honor-bound reason to share truth with people, but they can't do it without resources. Which one is it? Is it the New York Times that is making so much money off of crosswords and games? That's financing their ability to put out news. It's
even though right now I play my games on New York Times free.
yeah, but only one every day.
How many times do I need to play Connections every day?
Yeah, but that's a drug deal.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is you're just not the addict that they want.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
You-
A little bit once we can.
Yeah. Exactly. That's all that is.
Search engine in other countries. The U.S. is very money hungry. Money is first. Take Mexico, the family's first.
Yeah.
Or other countries, would their search engines be any better?
Well, what we can say is that from all our experience in Mexico, everybody uses Google. There isn't.
No, we don't.
No, well,
Everybody does not use Google,
I'm-
and therein lies the problem.
okay. I'm
Let's
generalizing.
Let's Google.
Let's
No,
just
let's
say.
not use
Let's just say if we do by percentages, the majority of people do Google.
Yeah,
In this country and the United States. Just if we went by percentages, I can say that without having to fact check it
Oh, I
because
believe
I
it.
just know.
it's all a marketing
That's
ploy.
worldwide.
What do you personally use?
I use Google. I use DuckDuckGo. But God, it's been a long time since Dogpile.
That's what I use. I
Never
use
heard of
Dogpile,
Yeah.
too.
But I use DuckDuckGo, and then when it fails, I go to Google, and I flip through pages of Google results because there's pages of garbage in them. But there used to be they tried to do a Latin American search engine back in the day. They had a search engine called Que Pasa for a while. That
I
didn't.
remember that.
Yeah, that didn't catch on. None of these, and I can't speak for Russia or China, but none of these nationalized versions of a Google has caught the attention that Google has. And I don't know if that's necessarily because Google's the best product. That sure hasn't been the case when we've looked at the way technology works. The best product does not always win. And you look at countries like Mexico, where you can assume they're on WhatsApp, you can assume they're on Facebook, you can assume they're on Twitter or Instagram, because it's free to use all that stuff on their data networks. So of course those are the tools they're using. Anything that's going to cut into the data plan is going to be second tier to them, because you've got these tools, they've been put in front of you. And what have these companies done? They've come into these markets and they've subsidized data use for those applications. They've paid Telcel and Mobistar to create this environment that silos their people without and calls it an advantage. It's for free. You get to use it for free. But what you've really done is you've trapped all these people into this
Well,
communications.
that's WhatsApp.
Well, it's WhatsApp, it's Facebook.
Is absolutely. You know,
It's
the
WhatsApp,
poster
it's
child.
Facebook, it's
Yeah.
Instagram, it's Twitter. All of these apps very specifically are available for free in these third world countries because the companies come in and they give money to the cell carriers to make those apps not count towards data, so you can use them all day long. The flip side of that is that now that's your source. That's your genuine source of communication. You're not even exploring outside of it.
Well, and you have to have their nasty, intrusive app on your phone, which is harvesting vast amounts of data, completely unrelated to your direct usage of that.
What's insidious is the way they've done it. It's like a gift to you. Look, you can use these apps for free. We don't have that in the States. You got to pay. Everybody in the U.S. has enough money for their data plan.
I thought I read that DuckDuck, whatever, uses the Google search engine.
You know, I'm going to find out whether that statement is correct, Mr. Stimson, because a friend of mine asked me to help. He's in the United States, and he asked me to help configure his iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And so for photographs, which he uploads to iCloud. And for his business purpose, I said, you absolutely want to max it out. But you got to check if you're paying for data for backup. I mean, we're talking about 48 megapixel, he has a nice iPhone 15. So 48 megapixel still pictures and 4K video and so on and so forth. Because I said, you got to go look at the chart down in your app. That these are big files. This is not little thumbnails. So, and I haven't gotten back. I don't even know what carrier he's with.
Well, and what I was referring to was very specifically those apps that I mentioned in third world countries are subsidized by their
Yeah.
and it does not happen in the United States.
Yeah.
They don't subsidize them. And so you are at the mercy of whatever your data plan is, and they treat you like...
Do they cap you? I mean, just like T-Mobile, I have no idea.
It depends on the plan.
Yeah.
It really depends on the plan.
There are caps on some T-Mobile plans, data caps.
Well, yeah, I would say across the board, any cell carrier has different plans that you can subscribe to, where you go past your cap. Some cut you off, others dial down your speed. They call it unlimited because you're still on the internet.
But you're so slow you can't use
That's right.
At 8 kbps.
That's right. It's like having a drip of water off your roof, and it's advertised as unlimited water. Well, all of that's fascinating, and none of it's anything we can do anything about. Do you have any calls to action that could change these experiences for us? It seems like the whole market is pushing us into paid services. The only other way I can see is nonprofit. I mean, maybe there's a nonprofit that can put together a search engine whose whole job is to make sure advertising and AI isn't involved, but it's based on just terms, like an index.
And then they'll not get funded.
Well,
then
I
they'll
mean,
not
I
get
went
funded.
totally DuckDuckGo years ago.
Yeah.
And I actually take it to the OCD extreme that when I set up a browser, I go in and I remove Google and Bing and Yandex and all of those things from the pull down. So if I'm going, I have to type in google.com
Exactly.
to go to google.com. I don't have the convenience. I didn't want the convenience. And personally, outside of the Kagi kind of level frustrations that drive me to Kagi for these handful of searches,
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo works. For maybe I live in some namby-pamby, simple query world, but
I think it works a lot. And when it doesn't, I go to Google.
me too.
That's where I'm at.
Google would actually be my third choice. I would do Dogpile.
See, you still use Dogpile.
But not very often. I use DuckDuckGo. It's
Yeah.
more than adequate. You can filter it by time or date or anything.
That's funny because it came out of my mouth just by accident. I haven't used Dogpile in years.
I use it. That's my second choice.
Yeah.
If I can't find what I want. I'm like really averse to using.
What do you find is the best site for like product recommendations? I tend to lean towards Wirecutter more than anything else.
Yeah, they have a fairly decent reputation. The Verge as well is one that I like to use for product recommendations.
And I always check a couple of different ones to
Yeah.
get something that's in common rather than.
I stopped taking CNET seriously because they basically, yeah, they basically write articles to sell products now.
Yeah.
Of course,
advertorial.
yeah.
Is the term for that.
It's good to know some of these sites like TechCrunch is notoriously a site that self promotes because they invest in products on that startups. They're a venture capital arm, and TechCrunch is their media arm, and so they highlight services and products that they're invested in. So it's kind of hard to take them seriously when they're spouting the advantages of something. It's like, well, yeah, it's like you really want us to buy it, don't you? And I'm afraid CNET's gotten like that. It's just Consumer Reports, of course, is always a very well vetted.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if I really needed to know something and a Consumer Reports link came up, I would trust it. Reviews on Amazon that are obviously not fake are what helped me decide product purchases. I think there's
a good review on Amazon.
legitimate good review.
Where
Yeah,
you can really see the,
pictures
coming
and
from Linux world. It's like it's always a godsend when I see something about something, and the guy says he's running basically the flavor of Linux that I run, and then he's describing some things and how it worked and how it was configured, and I'm like, that's not an AI. That was a real person, a real guy,
yeah.
and he's telling me that this works.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with product reviews, though.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was another one that I hadn't heard of. But yeah, you tend to use Wirecutter and Consumers Reports, and probably the two I go to the most.
Yeah, and I think The Verge has really good reporting on products too. I think they've got a good sense of what their parent company is doing versus what they're doing, and keeping that firewall separate. And so I think it's funny to listen to them sometimes because there's a lot of reporting they do on the media company that owns them, and they're lucky that they don't get censored.
Who does Verge?
I want to say it's CBS.
Okay.
Which obviously means 1,000 other companies. But let me do maybe that's a AI search. Who owns? Let's see what Google says. Owns The Verge. Oh yeah, Vox Media, which has been around for a long time. And what's the Wikipedia for Vox Media say?
Speaking of Wikipedia, isn't Trump going to change the name of that?
Wikipedia? Did you hear that? Really?
I heard that. Well, he took over the Kennedy Center, right?
Yeah,
And
they've
so-
all resigned.
And the symphony or orchestra from San Francisco
Well, Wikipedia's
gay.
English.
has been disinvited.
Vox Entertainment. Must just be Vox. It's just a huge organization. God, I thought,
Whatever you think of him as president, Barack and Michelle Obama had some outstanding musical artists in the White House.
I like those.
Across genres.
Yeah.
Very.
it wasn't a Village person.
It wasn't a village person. It wasn't like a continuous string of B-grade country acts. Q-grade country.
Yeah, offhand, it's Vox Media. Vox Media spans across a number of different products.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I like Verge reporting on products. I think they do a fair job of it. But Consumer Reports, I would say, is a Bible when it comes when they've written something. I completely trust it.
But that's pay.
Consumer Reports, well, yeah, but you know, they put out excerpts.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's fascinating too, because I haven't been on Consumer Reports in a long time. You knew it was pay.
Yeah, well, either you pay
Yeah.
for the magazine or you pay for the magazine and the online
Yeah.
version.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, okay.
Well, and it is an example of just getting frustrated and paying for a service.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like search we were talking about before.
Apple News is another one.
And news, yeah.
Apple News.
Do you think Apple News is worth paying for?
I do not.
Yeah.
I do, because you can go in and usually find their articles somewhere else.
Yeah, I haven't seen any reason I would want to pay for Apple
Neither.
News. If anything, the presentation I found is disappointing in the first place. There's nothing in the free offering that is drawing me into the idea of paying for more. If anything, the free offering is like, ugh, why did I come into this app again?
Every time I get a link from a friend that's from Apple News, I know before going to it
That you can't.
that it's going to be something I'm already aware of, regurgitated.
It's going to have less information than you know about it.
Like that Netflix.
Exactly. Especially if it relates to tech.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was something that was reported 10 days ago in ours with infinitely more detail.
You're reminding me that in my my podcast lineup in my library, I subscribe to Apple News, and it's basically an audio regurgitation of whatever they put in the news app. And without a doubt, I pop that in the morning, and it will be everything I've already heard at a lighter discourse, like just barely scratching the surface. And it feels like every time I hear them present something, it's like what they're really doing is they're showing you the cake and asking you to buy it. They got nothing to feed
Why
you.
do you then?
Because it's interesting. I mean, just like being able to share with you the compare and contrast from other news sources. It's funny too, because my dad will ask me stuff like, "Well, why do you listen to Fox News?" I'll be like, "You got to know what the other side's doing. You got to. You can't just live in a silo of information."
Outrageous.
And then when you do that, you know where all my enemies, which newscasts they're listening to.
Right?
So all their
Yeah.
comments are verbatim.
How often have you gotten into a discussion with somebody on the opposite side? You have no idea what they're spouting. It's like, what do you mean he buried Kennedys in a park? What the hell are you talking about? Clinton wasn't even around then. That was a reference to nothing. I was trying to come up with the most ridiculous thing I could think
Yeah,
of. Don't Google me on that. Something's going to pop up because the AI will just regurgitate it into something.
Right.
If you take what I just said and stick it into Google, it's going to spit back the next novel. Well, as usual, I've showed up with a couple of news articles that I probably pre-fed you if you were on our mailing list. And these are really light stuff, and that's why I haven't bothered to get into it until we're almost at the end of our meeting. But I do find them interesting. The first article is one you'll find at Ars Technica. Talks about Apple and Lenovo being the worst in repairability so far. They're the leaders in the worst repairability, which I find surprising. I thought Lenovo would have fare a little better. I wouldn't have put them on the level of Apple, but they're called the leading losers in repairability. Now this is we've got this right to repair movement that's happening right now in California specifically. They've got right to repair laws in place that require these manufacturers to provide information and parts to third parties to be able to fix these things. And so it's significant that two of the largest manufacturers in our market are being labeled as like malicious compliance.
But what's their failure rate?
The equipment's failure
Do
rate?
they fail a lot that you have to worry about that?
Well, it's I think that's an interesting perspective, but we're really criticizing them on their repairability in
But if it's
this
not
light.
Yeah.
Does
Right.
repairability mean
Yeah.
that maybe they've put so many components together that then the cost of repairing any one item almost isn't the cost of the entire buying a new one?
Well, I think you're on the right track. I mean, it is the way it's assembled so that it can be repaired in the future. It's designed. Its design should be using a language that allows it to be fixed in the future.
And oftentimes you can't fix it. You have to go pay somebody to do it.
With the
Well,
electronic components, you want to put them as close together, better
So they'll heat up.
basically lowers the cost and increases the speed of the product.
Well, I think that in this phase that we're in now, we want consideration be made on the other end. So designers are designing things that can be serviced.
You don't want to replace a CPU chip, for instance. That's kind of ridiculous.
No, but you want to be able to get out a motherboard and replace it if a component's burned out on it, right?
The motherboard, the cost is pretty much liable.
Well, because of an artificially manufactured marketplace where it's so impossible to take it apart, you might as well. But if you look at, Dave, you're familiar with the framework PC. That's a perfect example of designing for repairability. A motherboard can be replaced in 15 minutes, right? All other aspects of the computer still very viable. And they even, and I really hope that continues to go forward as a model of how we should be doing things. As far as the business side of things, I couldn't give you numbers or whether they're being successful. I'm just very impressed with their engineering and design language because you can change the keyboard, you can change the screen, you can change the bezel, you can change the aesthetics, you can change the components. You can lay out all your ports. I mean, this has really been thought out for user repairability, being able to replace things that have burned out, to the extent where you may want to upgrade your motherboard. Maybe you're now ready to change your computer over to an ARM chip instead of an Intel chip. This is what I'm hoping for in the future. You buy a framework and you're like, you know what? I'm ready to get into RISC processor computers. And you can pull that motherboard out and stick the ARM chip motherboard in. Keyboards, mice, ports, and and screens, those are all compatible across the board. It's just the CPU you're missing at that point.
Repairability for a desktop makes sense, but for a laptop, probably not.
Well, it does if you're replacing.
If it's something fairly simple, yeah, but
Well, I would disagree with you. I think that laptops, because they are portable desktops these days, they should have easy repairability. You should be able to, and imagine you got smoke coming out of one component. One component is you got orange juice on something, and that is burned out. And the repairability of that laptop is so expensive, you're online looking to buy another one. Or you've got something that was designed with the intention of that part being replaced.
But not for me to replace it.
No, that's like I'll mention the framework
Yeah.
laptop. If you want to look at a perfect example of what I'm talking about, the framework laptop is it, because you could replace it. They could send you the component with a 5-step instruction and a tool that came with your laptop, and you would be able to replace
So
it
it's
yourself.
not- It's a laptop, not a
Pictures, you're
desktop?
Supposed to know what they're showing.
Yeah.
But look how the war got lost in phones. I mean, we all have these phones that you're into,
Well,
more than $100 party.
But it hasn't been
replace-
lost with phones because of the regulation that California passed, and California has such a
You think
large.
We're gonna go back to user replaceable battery.
We already have. We've already. I mean, I should say we're on that path. The latest iPhones are the easiest to repair.
No. That's not user replaceable, Scott. You're really
No.
the easiest for some dude with fancy tools and magic hands. I'm talking about usable replaceable. I'm talking about, I was
Richard, my point was we're on that path. We're heading that direction again, where we were going completely away from it.
Baby.
No, I disagree. I think we'll see replaceable batteries again. I think. Are we running out of time?
I think it's after 11.
Well, Fred's still with us, and I haven't gotten a notification that our meeting's going to shut down yet.
They're letting you go long, Scott. 'Cause you started before 10.
Yeah, it could be because it's not a meeting if it's just Fred and me.
Yeah. That could be.
I will.
I'm guessing it didn't, I'm guessing your time didn't start until I logged in.
Oh, you're probably right, Fred.
Parent.
Say that again, Dave.
For the Lenovo, they have excellent documentation on how to repair it.
Yeah.
You can buy the part. I bought a keyboard. That's pretty easy. The problem is the screws are so small. It's so critical on alignment. It'll take, what you think is going to be super quick. It takes forever to get everything lined up to be able to put the screws back in to put things back together.
One of the things, again, going back to the framework PC, one of the things that I really appreciated is their use of magnets. So that you've got these components that are affixed solidly, like no janky, but then they can just be peeled off because they're affixed with magnets. And it's that kind of design language that we need to see in our equipment.
But you don't want magnets anywhere near electronics.
Well, you don't want them thoughtlessly around.
Well, but think of something-
I mean, you're going back to my point. My point is that our engineers, our designers, they need to be keeping things in mind other than it's the thinnest phone that has ever been made.
Well, absolutely.
That's not the goal. The goal is it's the phone that can continue to stay with you until you decide it's time for another phone. Not because the battery ran dead and you can't change it, or you need a heat gun to change the broken screen. And these things are changing. The design language of Apple is changing.
A heat gun, and you need. I mean, I've
You
never
need
used,
skills,
I've never
yeah.
used a heat gun, not once in my life.
Actually,
So if
heat
I
guns,
was
they've got a
given
heat plate,
gun
but
and a
yeah.
heat gun operation, I don't know how to operate it.
Oh, you have a driver in the 80s? Come on.
No, I didn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't. But you know what I'm saying.
But
if
magnets
you know,
and screws are going to win over glue as long as we understand what we're asking from our products. And it comes down to our own consciousness about what we want to buy and demanding that from our manufacturers. I think we've finally reached that point. I think people are becoming aware of what they're not interested in the slab of plastic if that slab of plastic's not going to work in 3 years and there's no place for that slab of plastic to go except in the trash. If I don't know.
User repair for me is, it's not gonna happen.
It's not, you're not going to do it, but you're going to
there's
benefit
something.
from the idea that my brother-in-law can take your phone apart easier and change the battery at a cheaper price without risking breaking the screen by accident and incurring another cost to it. You are going to benefit from that.
I don't think so.
I disagree.
I'm
I
still
think,
gonna have to pay to have it fixed.
well, yeah, but instead of buying a new phone, you might be able to get your phone repaired. Whereas before the repair cost was so expensive, you're like, well, what if I take that $200 and put it towards a new phone? And I can just throw this one in the trash.
You're paying for labor by the hour.
Yeah.
If the person you're paying only has to take an hour instead of 4,
That's,
it's gonna
yeah.
benefit you.
It's going to benefit you. And it opens up more options for you. And I don't know about you, I have trouble getting rid of old electronics. I can't throw them in the trash, especially if they still work. I have a lot of trouble throwing them away. I look forward to when there's a recycler, like we have one of these recycling days, and I can bring out boxes of crap because now it's not my responsibility, it's their responsibility.
Just admit it, you're a pack rat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a stack of things that I don't think I should give.
No,
rid
but
of.
I mean, I really do sympathize that when you have something that is still operational, it does sort of feel weird
So
to,
manufacturers can say what they want, they can call it repairable, self-repairable, or whatever. Doesn't mean it's gonna be easy.
right.
Well, and that's what we're working on right now is we don't have regulations on ease of use. And we actually only have state regulation on repairability. But those regulations in all those states basically they sum up to one concept. There's a period of time in which a manufacturer has to make documentation and parts available. It doesn't mean that parts have to be free. It doesn't even mean the documentation has to be free. It just means that they have to be in the marketplace, so it's an option.
Well, and I think forced open sourcing of orphan software is
Bill of Digital Rights.
is absolutely part of this picture.
That's right. Because if you're going to
Because you have a
orphan
device-
something,
you have a device like a Sonos or something.
yeah,
And company decides it's no longer going to support it, and you're just SOL.
I think these days, because I bought these speakers for the home entertainment center that are Echo speakers, they're smart speakers, and I think about smart speakers all the time now, because we've got them all over the house. We've invested all this in this hardware. All Amazon has to do is say, you know what, this isn't generating anything for us. We're turning this service off, and we'll have millions of smart speakers across the nation without an ulterior
Amazon
use.
just pulled the plug on older Kindles. This was
That's
our
interesting.
story from
Yeah.
yesterday. They pulled the plug on older Kindles, and you've got I can't remember the time frame because I don't have a device like that, but a very short time frame now that you've got to do something or you're going to lose all of your digital purchases.
Well, on the device, I would imagine, because they sit in the cloud.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to
But-
check that out because I depend on my Kindle.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you're not going to be able to access them anymore unless you buy a new Kindle.
I don't know how old mine is.
Well, we are running out of time. I got 2 more articles here. We could leave them or we could hit them real quick. And I also wanted to give time for recommendations. So, maybe I'll just mention them and you guys can take a look at them at your leisure. There's an article here, AI cracks superbug problem in 2 days that took scientists years. This is an example of AI helping. It's an interesting article because you can see who these, you can see the conclusions of who it would benefit from these conclusions. Saying this kind of article would really, well, it props up AI stock prices. It creates a demand for AI. It's right, but at the same time, the scientists are impressed. It built on other work, which this article doesn't really reflect on. This article really is kind of spouting the beauty of the technology without recognizing that the technology was actually doing the analysis that already existed.
With no snark intended, but is this a theoretical cracking, or has this
No,
been
it's already been
clinically-
cracked.
Has it, no, but has it been clinically tested? Has it been proven that it was cracked?
Yeah.
Okay,
Essentially,
okay.
the article is talking about 10 years of research that got fed into an AI, and in 2 days came to the same conclusions that 10 years of research did. So, I mean, you got to
AI's
expand on that.
conclusions were based upon the data collected
That
during
over-
the 10 years of
That's
research.
right. 10 years of research
So
pumped
what?
it. So that's the point. That the point is that it drove the same conclusions as the researchers with only looking at their research.
For 2 days.
Yeah. And what the researchers were impressed with was that it generated hypotheses of new thought that the researchers had never even
Well, that's
considered.
That's interesting.
I mean, well, it's very interesting because it shows a well-defined scope that AI could be helping us with.
Yes.
This place where we lose the creative thinking, this place where we're not able to generate the new ideas ourselves, and it's able to just blow out ideas. I don't know how, like explode with ideas in a variety, like a kaleidoscope of things, being dumb ideas, good ideas, and it has the ability to just blossom out from that information. And they found these other hypotheses very worth studying, and so they're pursuing that information now that they would not have if they had not invoked the AI in this manner. So I found that article very interesting. The
I
other
have a
article.
question for you.
Oh, Fred, I'm sorry, you did have your hand up. Go ahead.
How long would it take AI to crack the Enigma code that the Nazis used in World War II? Have you seen anything on that?
I haven't seen anything on that, but that's an interesting question. We should ask an AI that. I wonder if we could go to
But,
Gemini.
I mean, those have been cracked, so that would be available as cryptographic information on the internet. What would be more interesting is the uncracked thing that's at the CIA headquarters,
Well,
which has never been cracked.
you're talking about the data warehousing that goes on in Utah, right?
No, I'm talking about it's a
Black or-
publicly available plaque,
Oh, okay.
which has never been cracked.
Well, I would imagine that what we're comparing is how long an AI would take versus the Enigma machine that was developed to break those codes.
I see.
I think that's what Fred's referring to. And I haven't seen anything
That's-
like that. And I
That's
would
correct.
say again. Oh, it did.
That's correct. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, and I would wonder if it was even able to do it without having some guardrails on it, since it's so lousy at math. And the Enigma was all about math. I heard somebody talking about this problem with our learning models because it's never doing math. All it's doing is token recognition and statistical probability. And that's why it can't add two numbers together and get the right
Reliable.
answer all the time. Is because every aspect of asking it to do math is token probability. And it has no inkling of what math is. So it's, I mean, to really dumb it down, it would be like when you ask what's 2 plus 2, it's not doing math. It's going out into its information, going, what's the probability of what's going to come up next? And if we had a bunch of articles out there saying, it's like when you say 2 + 2 = 5, if that outweighed the number of things out there saying 2 + 2 = 4, the answer is going to come back 5.
Model poisoning
Mm.
going to happen. You
Well,
know it.
I think we saw model poisoning with this as.com article right there, right? The one we started our meeting with is like they've ginned up this article, probably genuine. It would look like genuine information, look like good information. Slaps a date on it from 2 days ago
But let's say
when it's
not,
7 months
let's
old.
say it's not genuine information, or some component of it isn't genuine information. It's now getting slurped up by the next training spiders.
Right,
And it
exactly.
has the same weight as truth.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I got one more article, very quick one. You guys can read it yourself. People who block their smartphone's internet for 2 weeks report big mood boost. This has actually been scientifically studied, and it seems to stick with you. It diminishes a bit, but apparently, if you want to get happier, stop using internet on your phone. You can use it at home. That's what this article says. You can use it on your personal computer.
I
Right?
never use internet on the phone.
I don't, I
It's-
rarely.
That's why I'm so happy.
Yeah, you are. But yeah, that's the gist of this article, is that they've done studies of this, and if you go in and you block your internet access on your mobile device, they're talking about mobile devices. You're not worried about instant communication, you're not worried about your social media presence, you're saving all that for a desk and a chair and a monitor.
Mhm.
You're going to be a happier person.
Yeah, because every time your phone dings, you go,
Yeah.
what was
And-
that? I gotta go check it.
My
I-
phone's off.
Actually,
Mine's on silent right now.
Actually, to that respect, I turned off notifications for all my social networks last year. And so I do go every day. I go almost once every 2 hours to my social media to see if a notification has come up, because they don't go to my phone anymore. I have to go and get, and I feel like a happier person
That's
for
good.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every day I get to choose whether I'm going to be bothered by it or not.
Well, and I
and
mean,
that makes me a happier
If
person.
you're an emergency room doctor and you might be called at any hour of any day, okay, then you have to always be accessible. That's your job. But very few people have jobs like that.
Well, and to be fair, you don't need to be ready on Facebook as an emergency doctor.
No, you don't.
And that's
No, you
really
don't.
what I'm talking. I didn't turn off all my notifications. I turned off all my social media notifications.
But wait a minute, every time I text or call my husband, the phone is somewhere else and he never gets it. I could be stranded on the road.
He sounds like a happy guy.
Well, he's not. He's a grouch.
He's definitely not bothered by daily
No, he's
notification.
not. Just leave me stranded here. I'll call our neighbor 4 miles down the road.
He sounds healthier than me. I can't go to the bathroom without my phone. He can lose his for a day.
Yeah.
Well, those were my articles. We're at the end of our meeting, and I'd be happy to entertain any recommendations people might have. I've already put Kaji in here. Kaji? Am I saying that right? And someone was recommending the pizza place in the Ranchitos. I think it was Christine.
Yeah.
And there's a phone number I stuck it.
$129 for a pepperoni. And it's ready in 10 minutes. You just walk in and say that's what I want.
We're in the
The one-
This
The
is
one down from the athletic club, Costuram is
by
here.
the Oaks.
Thick crust, thin
Yeah.
crust? What?
Huh?
Was it thick crust, thin crust,
I'd say medium,
medium? Oh,
more towards the thin side.
Nice.
And I put the phone number in under lunch recommendations. You
Has
can call
anybody-
ahead.
Has anybody seen The Agency?
The
Yeah,
agency.
it's about CIA.
Ooh.
The first season is over. It's really good.
Are you recommending?
I am recommending. What was it on?
What was it on?
It was streaming on. It was on CBS, but it's an add-on to that. I don't know what it is. Another streaming.
Have you guys been watching Silo?
No.
So Silo is a Apple TV story. They just finished their second season. We're waiting for a third season. It's very well done. It's based on a set of books that I've recently started reading. And if you are, I was very impressed. I've actually read these books in reverse. I read the third one, the second one. Now I'm reading the first one. What I was impressed by was the third one really felt like the second season. And the second one, if you get into these books and you like the TV show, you may want to stay away from the second book because it reveals everything you don't know watching the TV show is found out in the second book of this season. And I'm convinced what they did is they said, this is going to be a great show if we keep a mystery going. And so it's like they've sprinkled little things from the second book into the second season.
What's the subject matter?
So the idea is that, and the TV show
Without spoilers.
Yeah, the TV show and the very first book, I like I said, I just started the first book, and it's almost identical to the TV series. It's very well done, the TV series. And you wake up in a world of people that are living underground in these silos. 10,000 people in a silo. But you have to get, you're not even aware of what's happened to the rest of the world. All you know is there's a culture of people that for over 140 years have been living underground.
Okay.
And it's a dystopian, you figure that out. And as you go through the first season of this show, you learn more and more about the inner workings of this community. 10,000 people, they've got a mayor, they've got sheriffs, they've got deputies, they've got political people that are in charge, they've got technology issues. One of the things that's very interesting in the books and in the TV show is how they have a knowledge of how things work, how mechanics work, but they don't have a real knowledge of why they work. They've lost all this knowledge. They understand how to keep something going, but they don't quite understand why it goes in the first place. If you follow what I mean?
Yeah.
Cheryl, Showtime.
Yeah, it is an excellent TV show, and I'm enjoying it again. I watched it on my own when it first came out, and there's been so much talk about it in my circle of people that my wife's like, I want to watch it, and so we were rewatching it together. She wasn't interested in it the first time, and so now we're rewatching it together right now. But it's an excellent show.
Showtime?
No, Showtime is for the agency.
It's on Apple Plus. It's on Streamio. Silo is the name of the show. Yeah.
Before, and I looked at it.
When somebody watches something on Streamio, Apple doesn't get paid, right?
No, Apple gets paid when you buy an Apple device. Or you pay for an Apple service. Sydney's got...
Have you watched Only the Brave?
Me and Scott,
Hold on a second there, Fred. We'll get to you in just a second. Go ahead, Sid.
me and Scott watched a movie the other night called, what was it?
Old Guy.
Old Guy.
Yeah.
This is a regular movie.
This is a movie. Yeah, this is a standard movie.
Old white man coming to the end of his career.
It's an English
Gets assigned by his
production.
boss to observe the new guy, train him a little if need be.
Cool.
And oh yeah, no, great movie. Got a lot of hopes when we started watching it. Pretty good by the end. Definitely recommend.
Yeah,
And it's a regular one, like
It's a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie.
It's a movie production company and all that. The when you get into it, I mean, it's not a story. It's not a news story. The idea that you've got a retiring hitman, and so he's in charge of helping show the ropes to a younger guy coming in. But it is very funny, and it's really well done. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. It's
Yeah, it's an easy recommendation. Anything else out there? Oh, Fred, you were mentioning
Only the Brave?
Only the Brave. Is that a movie?
Yes, it's on Netflix.
Only the Brave. I haven't heard of it.
It's about the hot shots that died in,
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think of what,
Fire, yeah.
the fire. And it was
Oh.
pretty well done.
The fire.
I enjoyed it.
These are
That's not a new.
the Brave.
Wait.
Old, not old. Only the Brave. My fingers are not typing what my brain is telling them to type. It's a 2017 film.
That's it.
Oh yeah, I have watched this movie. This is really good. A group of firefighters from California ignores a warning by superintendent about a wildfire. He decides to get his crew certified as wildfire hotshots. That's not a great synopsis, but that's what's on Wikipedia. Based on the true story of the Granite Mountain Hotshots. That's a better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leader of that.
A group of elite firefighters who risk everything to protect a town from a historic wildfire. That's the synopsis.
Netflix and Prime?
Yeah, it looks like it's available on Netflix and Prime. Cool. Well, if nobody has anything else to add to this meeting, I'm going to call it to a close. This has been the San Carlos Computer Club. Like I mentioned at the top, we meet every Tuesday at 10 in Tequilas to talk tech. Everyone is welcome. It's an open group. If you show up for one of our meetings, either virtually or in person, you are a member of the San Carlos Computer Club. And if you'd like to get regular updates when we're having a meeting or get access to the document we use of possible topics, then make sure I get your email address so I can send you notifications and documents. I've got nothing more to say except for everybody, until next Tuesday, tech on.
These are yours? Yes. Okay. I think, no, I probably would have left. It's very well pleased to share.
Have a good week.
You too.